Can you make an entire full color painting with only a few colors? Well, today we're going to find out. A limited palette means using the fewest pigments possible to create the widest range of color mixtures. There's a ton of different palette combinations that you can use, and in a little bit I'll share my favorite ones. Make sure you stick around. In the meantime, why would you even want to use a limited palette anyway? Well, here are 3 reasons. Reason number 1 is that you save money. If you go to the art store and you buy every single color that you think you're going to need for a given painting, you might walk out of there with 10, 15, 20 colors. Well, that's going to add up really quick. With a limited palette, you're only buying a few tubes of paint, and guess what? You're going to actually use those tubes of paint. You're not just going to use a tiny amount and then throw it into a bin in the corner and let it dry out and waste your money. By using a limited palette, you end up saving yourself quite a bit. Reason number 2 limited palettes are so great is that you actually learn how to mix colors. And I mean, you get really good at it because you have to do it. There's no way around it. You can't just go get the tube of color that you need to mix the color that you're missing. You learn how to match those colors precisely using what you've got. And by doing that over and over and over again, you just get super good at it, and it starts to become second nature. You don't even think about it anymore. And reason number 3 you should use a limited palette is because you get this beautiful built-in color harmony in your painting. One thing I see a lot in beginner paintings is you have this kind of garish color all over the place, and the colors don't really match up very well with each other. It just is kind of hard to look at sometimes. With a limited palette, you're only using a few pigments to mix all your colors with, so inherently a little bit of each of those is probably going to be mixed into several of your mixtures, and that alone means that you're going to get this beautiful unified look in your painting, and it will happen really naturally. You're not even going to have to try to do it. Now, some might say, okay, those are all good reasons, but what about downsides? What's the drawback to using a limited palette? Well, if you're truly using a limited palette, there may be a few colors that you just can't quite get, but those are probably going to be super intense colors. That'll be hard to mix it. You know, if you're painting representationally, you're probably not going to need them very often. In that case, it can be helpful to have a few what I call power colors on hand just for those special occasions. We'll get to those in a minute. So that brings us to your combination of pigments that you use on your limited palette. Where do you even start? Well, first, every palette needs a white of some sort. For many artists, this is the pigment that they're going to use the most. Depending on what type of paint you're using, you're going to have a few options. The white you'll probably see used most is a titanium white. This is an inexpensive, very opaque white, and it works great. You might also see something called zinc white. This white is more transparent, and it's also popular, although at least with oil painting there's some concern that a zinc white is going to crack and it might cause you some issues over time, so maybe stay away from it. The other popular white to use is a lead white. Lead white is actually the white pigment that has been used most throughout history, and it has a great mixing quality, and it almost has kind of this stringy, taffy-like consistency. Personally, it's my favorite white, but you know, you got a minor problem that it's made with lead. Because of the toxicity issue, a lot of manufacturers have stopped making lead white, but you can still find it out there if you want to try it. Next, you're going to need some sort of combination of the primary colors red, yellow, and blue. Now, you could go a lot of different directions here. I really recommend using highly saturated, intense pigments. This is going to allow you to mix the widest range of colors possible. You can experiment with different variations of red, yellow, and blue and see what you get. By the way, if you're getting value from this video, I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe. It's a free way to support my channel, and then you ensure that you're not going to miss any more content going forward. Also, if you wish, you could draw or paint yourself, but think, I can do a stick figure. That's about it. Make sure to check out my online art coaching program at the link in the description below. I'd love to help you out. All right, shameless plug over. Now, we also talked a bit about Power colors. These are pigments that you're not going to need very often, only when you can't reach those few super intense mixtures with your standard palette. For me, these two pigments are a naphthol or cadmium red and a phthalo blue. I hardly ever have to use these two pigments, but when I need it, they really come in handy. So to wrap it up, what does my limited palette look like? Well, I like the Artisan water mixable oils made by Winsor & Newton, and I use a titanium white, a lemon yellow, an alizarin crimson permanent, an ultramarine, a burnt umber, and a cadmium red as my main power color. So these 6 pigments do pretty much everything I want. If you have a limited palette that you like to use and you'd like to share, or if you have any questions about this stuff, please leave a comment down below and I'd be happy to chat with you about it. And if you want to see my limited palette in action, I would recommend checking out this video here from a recent extreme plein air adventure where I nearly got blown off the mountain. Fun times.